Fossil fuel companies knew as early as the late 60s and early 70s about the climate crisis and about exactly what they were creating. And they then employed a series of tactics to double down on their actions. They started with climate denial. They spent hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, discrediting climate scientists. It was fossil fuel companies who, in incubators and think tanks, created terms like climate change and global warming instead of crisis or heating, to lull people into a false sense of security and the reassurance that it's not really that bad. And then, some of their more recent tactics are really around deflection. How do we shine the spotlight of accountability away from ourselves and onto everyday people? We saw that with BP, which at the time was British Petroleum, which then, in a stroke of greenwashing, rebranded to Beyond Petroleum, who in the early 2000s created the carbon footprint calculator. It was fossil fuel companies who created the concept of an individual being responsible for their emissions, because it was an ingenious way for them to shine the spotlight away. And just 2 weeks ago, we had the CEO of ExxonMobil coming out and saying, do you know what? We're not even denying the climate science anymore, but actually, this is not on us. It's not on fossil fuels. The reason we're not solving climate change is because people aren't willing to pay more for green energy. And this is an industry, which was shared in the last session, is subsidized to the tune of $7 trillion every year. The 5 biggest oil and gas companies in 2022 made $200 billion US. The CEO of ExxonMobil, who said it's not on us, it's on the individuals, he made over $35 million in 1 year off the back of the Ukraine war. In the UK, you have territories and areas like Yorkshire where 8 in 10 people are in fuel poverty. In the first half of 2022, 8 million people in the UK had to borrow money to afford their energy bills. This is when companies are making record-breaking profits, and you have the UK government approving projects like Rosebank, right? The largest untapped oil and gas field, and approving hundreds of new oil and gas licenses. They're doing this when people are in fuel poverty and when none of that energy is going to see UK households. It's going to see the pockets of politicians who are in bed with the fossil fuel lobby, who are in bed with the fossil fuel corporations. And frankly, it's not just the fossil fuel CEOs, it's not just the CEO of ExxonMobil, it's this entire enabling environment around them. It's policymakers, it's also the media. I've seen nothing in the mainstream media in the UK reporting on the profits of these corporations, of these CEOs. The media is more interested in depicting environmental activists like myself as terrorists, as telling you that we're the issue, the people who are trying to sound the alarm. There is a culture of censorship, of silencing activists, of giving platform to fossil fuel companies, of allowing them into the room. It was mentioned that at COP28 last year, there were over 2,400 oil and gas lobbyists, 4 times more than the year previous. And this is meant to be a neutral negotiation space for policymakers to actually agree on genuine action, on genuine commitments. And so, honestly, it's a bit of a joke if we continue to allow ourselves to believe that fossil fuels have any role in our future, and to not acknowledge that they're doing everything in their power to maintain supremacy.